What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. Duce Ray here. Today, we're going to talk about compressors, specifically top 3 compressors. More specifically, my top 3, but this kind of holds, I think, a lot of weight with many industry professionals. So, before we get into that, do me a huge favor, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button, lets YouTube know that people actually want to see my content. More about this channel, I do basically tips and tutorials. I post my beats here, so if you're an artist looking for beats for your music, for an album or whatever, or even a single, I post beats here. There's links to my beat store as well in the description of all my videos, duceraybeats.com. I'm also on many of the beat selling platforms like BeatStars and SoundClick, etc. So you can check that out. Links in the description. Again, please subscribe. Definitely helps the channel. One more thing, if you're looking to release music on all the major platforms, try DistroKid. I got a link down in the description. They'll save you some money on your account with them. It starts, I think, at $20 a year. And like I said, I can get you a discount down below, and it definitely helps out the channel. So check that link out as well. Be super appreciative. Now let's get into it. Compressors. Well, there's a lot of different types of compressors. And if you don't know what a compressor is, let's really quickly talk about that. Just to give you a brief overview. A compressor is to kind of help, generally speaking, level out the dynamics of a signal. So if you're recording something, whether it be an instrument or a vocal or whatever, you may have loud parts and quiet parts where it kind of goes up and down. You want to kind of bring those together, quiet down the loud parts, bring up the quiet parts. That's basically what a compressor does. There's a lot of different tools within different compressors that help you achieve that in different ways. So we're going to talk about my top 3 compressors, what I use them for. Not really in any particular order, but first go-to compressor I go for is usually a channel strip compressor of some kind. I often use the SSL channel strip. I do have a UC1 behind me here. As you can see, I've done a review on that. I'll try to remember to post a link in the description, but if you go on the channel, there's a video about the UC1. A channel strip, generally speaking, has your level input, like in traditional sense, an actual hardware channel strip will have your preamp. It'll often have a compressor and an EQ, sometimes other features like de-essers and things of that nature. But basically, most channel strips have a compressor, just about every one I've seen. So I tend to use that first. And that's just, I'm not like trying to do any kind of character shaping with that kind of compressor. I'm just trying to get a little more control, bring it in line a little bit more, along with some EQ. So it's just a quick and easy way for me to add some compression, some basic EQ, kind of broad moves. And it's usually my first plugin in my DAW. So across all my template, across all the inputs, I usually have the SSL channel strip right there just because it's easy and nice to use. You can do this with any channel strip plugin. There is so many out there. Just about every DAW comes with one, so you don't even have to go buy one if you don't want. I use Studio One. It has its own channel strip. I think they call it fat channels in there. But basically, it's a combination of a few things. Usually has a compressor, some EQ, and potentially other things like a limiter or gate, things of that nature. You find maybe on mixing consoles as well. So that's the first kind of thing I go for. I use the SSL, but you can use literally whatever you want. I find it just a quick and easy way to put it across, make a template with however many channels you tend to use. If you use a lot of channels, set up your template with 32 channels or 64 or whatever it is. If you only use 12, set up a template with 12 channels. And just throw across all the channels your favorite channel strip. And then you have a real quick, easy go-to EQ compression right there. All right, number 2. Probably my favorite compressor of all time. I use this all the time. Use it software plugin wise and hardware wise. I own one. It's 1176. I don't own an actual original 1176. I own a version of one, a clone of one, I guess, from Warm Audio. I love it. I use it to track everything pretty much. Well, every vocal, every mono source I run through there. If I'm running stereo source, I tend to use a different set of things. But I love the 1176. I love the way it sounds. I love its controls. It's just my go-to compressor. If I probably only had one compressor, like, it's maybe not as versatile as, say, like a distressor. I mean, people say the distressor is the most versatile compressor. They're probably right. I just don't reach for it too much, but that is a very good compressor as well. It allows you a lot of flexibility. But mine is 1176. That's my desert island compressor. I can make it work for whatever. It has an input and an output, a set threshold. So the threshold doesn't move. You just drive the signal into the threshold point with your input and trim back on the output. So you balance those two for your level. And then you have buttons for the ratios, 4, 8, 12, 20. And then most of these have an all button, or you can press all. If it doesn't have an all button, you can literally press in all of the buttons at the same time. And it gives it a different kind of, like, almost limiter, dirtier kind of sound to it, which can be super cool as well. That's been a trick that's been around forever. So if you didn't know that, you can actually do that. A lot of plugins just have a button that you can push that says all, and it's doing that. But if you have a physical unit and it doesn't have an all button, I'm not sure. I'm sure probably one or two out there probably have an all button, but most of them you can just push all of them in at the same time. And it's great. I love that. I don't do a lot of the all feature, but it's nice to have. When I'm tracking, I'm usually either 4-to-1 or 8-to-1, depending on who's, like, I do a lot of vocal tracking, so those are when I'm tracking with actual physical hardware. Plus, when I'm tracking, I'm just trying to control for the most part, shape a little bit, but I'm not trying to get my final compression sound from that first compressor. I tend to use multiple compressors to get there. I find it sounds better than trying to have one compressor do all the work. So there's another tip for you. My number 3, let's go into number 3, is a bus compressor. My finishing compressor, I guess, or just my bus compressor. That would be my third compressor in line. Now, there's lots of other compressors, and I'll give you a couple others here as bonus compressors, I suppose. But my third most used, and use it all the time, is a bus compressor. So bus compressor generally, to me, is something that has a little more fine control, especially in the ratio department. I generally use them just to give a couple of dBs. Basically, I use it a lot for, like, when I'm sending groups of, like, layers of vocal tracks into a single bus to kind of glue them all together, and lets them sit better within the mix. And then, obviously, when you get to the mastering or on your master bus, your final 2 output, or in the mastering phase, usually using another compressor to kind of glue all that together as well. So basically the same principles here, but a bus compressor would be my number 3. My favorite is one from Slate Digital, the VBC compressor. It actually has 3 compressors within it. I tend to use either 1 or 2 at a time. I've used all 3 and very subtly on each one before. I've used just one. It just depends on what it's called for, but basically I'm just trying to subtly glue things together with a bus compressor. So I want nuance with that kind of compressor. Now, there's lots of them out there. I have, I don't know, probably 20, 30 bus compressor plugins on my machine that, from SSL to Plugin Alliance to Slate to PreSonus ones to a bunch. There's a bunch of them out there. Just look for something that gives you that fine control. You're trying to, like, remember, mixing in general and compression in general, but mixing in general as well, is a lot of small things, right? It's an accumulation of 2% and 5% and whatever all across the mix. It's not, let's get 50% of the mix done with these one plugin or whatever, right? It's not how it works. At least it should, if you're doing this to try and make it sound as best as possible. That would be my number 3 as a bus compressor. Some notable bonus compressors, I suppose. This one's a really popular one. It's an LA2A compressor. LA2A is like an optical compressor as opposed to an 1176 would be a FET compressor. They're just different styles of compression. An optical compressor in general is generally more transparent. You don't really you shouldn't hear the compression happening as much. They're very finicky, at least in my experience. I find it like you move that knob like a millimeter and you're like, oh, don't move. Yeah. So they're very, but people love them. People often use, like, is not uncommon, even for tracking, to go into 1176 followed by an LA2A. So it's a very popular compressor. They'll do a little bit of the snappy work on the 1176 and kind of smooth it out with a LA2A. Very popular in vocals, pop vocals, country vocals. I would say it's a little less popular on hip hop vocals, with like rap vocals and stuff, because I think a lot of times you don't want that smoothing effect. You don't want to you want it to be very choppy at times, especially fast rappers. I generally don't use a LA2A on some fast rap. I feel like it takes away from what you're trying to accomplish with it. So, but with singing, they're great. I use them like on like pop vocals, R&B stuff. So they're a great thing. Sometimes people use them on master buses or even as a bus compressor. They're very simple. They have you just have a threshold or a peak reduction knob and an output. Literally two knobs on an optical compressor, so there's not much to adjust. They're very simple to use, but they're definitely not right for every source. So, but if you're a singer or you just need to smooth things out or just add a little bit of leveling, they're a good choice as well. Those are my compressors of choice. You know, if you like this video, if any of this information was helpful, let me know in the comments. I appreciate it. Please leave a like. Again, please subscribe. And if you need to distribute your music, check out DistroKid. Link in the description. Helps out the channel. If you need beats, I got those on the channel as well. Also, DuceRayBeats.com. Check that out. Thank you. See you in the next one. Peace.